If ever your life could be a true crime podcast episode, then this podcast is for you. We're about to embark on a roller coaster of emotions, insights, survival, and stories about escape. So buckle up and let the journey begin.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Escape Pod, a part serious, part hilarious dramedy featuring stories of escape. I am Julie, here with Charity. How's it going today?
Oh, peachy. That's the best I got today.
If it sounds sarcastic, it's because it is.
Yeah.
We've had better days. We work together in a challenging field, and some days go better than others. And that's true for all sorts of things. That's part of, we're escaping to the Escape Pod suite here at the One Heart campus in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Hiding.
We're hiding, like essentially.
Yeah.
Well, that's what people do,
the lights
right?
Are off.
Sometimes.
No one knows we're here. Yeah. Just hiding from all of the blah out there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been a lot of blah lately. There's also plenty of good things, but we're going to start with the blah and end with the good. So today's episode of the Escape Pod, we're going to be talking about stalking.
We're going to talk about stalking. Though, as a sidebar, I'm just thinking, when you talk to people and they want to be happy and excited and feel fulfilled and they decry terrible things in the world, but then they cause them at the same time.
Yeah.
Like that just seems to be becoming more prevalent, and I don't know, I think that's why I'm struggling today. Would love to escape people who don't understand that they're the problem.
That's a good one.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they just don't. And I don't think any of them have like bad hearts.
Right.
Bad brains might be, another story. But
Well, it's probably a version of crisis brain, right? It's something has happened at some point that you've decided, not you as in you, Charity, but that a person has decided they're going to key in on something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this happened to me, and now I have to change all the things. And we do often forget what the unintended consequences sometimes. No action is not necessarily a good thing, but sometimes action for the sake of action is also
not a good
terrible
thing.
Yeah, it can be. It can be. Well, you're safe here in the Escape Pod suite with me.
Well, thank you. At least for
For now.
Yeah, for now.
For the next 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah, well, I'll take it.
So our escape this week, and unfortunately, I have never, well, to my knowledge, I guess, I have had unusual people contact me. I was on television for a long time. So sometimes you'd get the odd email, you'd get the person who would call often, that kind of stuff. But I would have never considered it criminal in nature. It was just kind of the thing we kept our eye on, there's a viewer who thinks that you're best buds and would send letters or would call. There was one gentleman in particular who would always call 10 minutes before the newscast. And I finally had to tell the
Always
secretary, yeah, roughly. I mean, like, even if I could take his call, like, I can't take his call at 10 minutes till I'm supposed. Or I would take the call when I didn't know who it was initially and then be like, okay, I really got to go. Like this is the main part of my day. So I am very fortunate because I have known people in the news business, especially TV news anchors. It is not a super unusual thing to have viewers like really key in on you, right? And so I do know of people who even had to press charges against somebody in order to try and get it to stop, had protection orders against people, that type of thing. So I was not one of them, I'm pleased to say, but you had your own experiences with stalking, and we'll share some of those as well as some of what we know has happened in other places around the country that it can get pretty serious. People joke about obsessions sometimes, OCD this, OCD that. Well, no, sometimes it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And when it becomes like that, like something needs to be done. So we'll also share some good tips for escaping that kind of situation as best you can, giving yourself at least a chance to get out of it. So go ahead, Charity. When do you recall your first maybe episode of having somebody who it became a really unhealthy thing really quickly?
Well, the first one was an ex-boyfriend that we've already talked about on a previous episode. And that was of a, no, you can't break up with me. And
like leaving, was he the one he'd like leave things in your locker?
Yeah.
And he would, and this was all before, schools were secure
Yeah.
and people would know if somebody
there
didn't
were still
really belong
dinosaurs
there.
outside. And yeah, anyone could wander into your high school and no one would ask questions. Yeah. So,
Right.
yeah.
Because he was not a student.
Not at that time.
Yeah. Okay.
He'd graduated from that school. So that was the first one. Second one was a customer. So I started waiting tables when I was like 14 years old. And I did it until I was probably 19. And so at this point in time, I was 18. I had just turned 18. And you always have these regulars that would come into the counter. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this particular guy, he was nice enough. He was this much old. I mean, I am 18. He's probably in his 40s, a veteran. I think he, now looking back, probably had some PTSD and some different things. And his sister was a bartender in the bar downstairs. So it was like a restaurant upstairs, a bar downstairs. And so that's how he started coming to the place, was because his sister worked in the same building, and he just, he'd come to the counter every day. And he was nice, really nice man, mm-hmm. Didn't think anything of it. And then, these are my, when wasn't my partying days, but it was partying days. And so I'd work, open the restaurant, get off work, go get ready, go party. I mean, that's what I did. And so I'm out one night, and he just kept showing up to different places that I was at. And I mean, I'm hanging out with, 18
teenagers.
19, yeah. So it was odd. It was odd. And then this just kept escalating. And then one night I got so bad that I was definitely feeling uncomfortable. And he lived somewhere on the same, so this would be in this case, Mount Rushmore Road. And back then there was a gas station we would hang out at, and because this was pre-cell phones, we would say, okay, blah blah, this party's
there at 8 o'clock,
kind of get the social rundown of what was going on that night. And
those were the days.
Yeah, and he, as far as I know, didn't have a vehicle, so he walked, and he found me, and I had a very distinctive car, so it was parked outside the restaurant. It was easy to figure out where I was at. So he shows up, and I'm not feeling comfortable. I went to some of my guy friends and just said, hey, can you guys like intervene here and take him home? Mm-hmm. And they did. They got him in the car, got him back up to where he lived at a motel off of that street. And another hour later, here he is again. He had walked back down, and at this point I was like, I need to remove myself from.
And is he pretending to care about the other people, or was he always there to see you?
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I removed myself from that situation, and then the next work day I went and talked to his sister because I didn't know what else to do. It didn't even dawn on me because I didn't care for the police back then. I have a very different opinion now, obviously, being married to one. But back then, that wasn't who I was going to call to look out for me. So I went and talked to his sister and just said, hey, this is weird. And she agreed, and she talked to him, and then it stopped. Another one was, so fast forward I guess I'll do it in chronological order. So the customer, and then one was a cop, mm-hmm. which he wasn't nearly as crazy, I don't think, as the one we're going to talk about in the story today. But I was in college, and it's kind of a side story.
That's fine. I like the side stories.
How he entered into my sphere. So it ties to a story that we'll probably do at another time. But this was a very stressful work night. I'd quit my job as a waitress also, and went out with a friend who had quit the same job the same night. So we went out. We didn't know each other. She was like came from a rancher family. I came from, trailer trash, like totally different backgrounds, right? And so we go out to this club that was 18 to enter, 21 to drink. We were not 21. We went and drank before we got there, right?
Of course.
So, yeah, it was a bad night. We raided her sister's liquor cabinet, had at it. Then we go to the club to band playing, live music, dance kind of a thing. At this particular establishment, if you were under 18, they would take your ID. And so they had like this little Rolodex kind of a thing. They'd file your ID, and then they'd put a big black M on your hand for minor in a big black Sharpie. And
or winner if you're upside down.
Or yeah, depends on what you're doing. But anyway, so we're having fun, and there was a girl there I had grown up with, and we didn't particularly get along. And she was dating the bouncer, decides to stir the pot a little bit. So next thing, and it's her boyfriend. She's dating the bouncer, so he comes in and says, I'm going to pull you out because you've been drinking here. And I'm like, okay, no, that is not a true statement. And so
drink before we got here.
Yeah, I didn't tell him that. I'm just like, and he knew it was bullshit. Like this was all a setup, right? So he pulls me and my girlfriend out, and she doesn't know me. This is our first night hanging out ever. We didn't even know of each other prior to this job and walking out on the job together. So we get pulled out. We're in the hallway, and he's trying to get us to admit it. And I'm not going to admit it because it wasn't true. And so I said, call the cops, get him here. No. Like, you know what you're doing, and I know what you're doing. So get the cops here. If you think I was drinking in there, prove it. Get them here. And Julie, again, she doesn't know me, and she's just like, shut up. What are you doing? And it's not the Julie I'm talking to right now.
Yeah.
It's just her name was Julie. She's like, Dad's going to kill me. What are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm like, hey, look, I'm calling his bluff. Like, He is full of it, and he knows it. And so at the end of the day, he never did call the cops. Never did. We were escorted out, but he didn't give us our IDs back. So what the club manager did is she turned our IDs over to the police.
Okay.
I'm not going to name this guy because he's crazy, and I'm just not going to name him. But many, many, many years later, when my husband decided to stop being an engineer and wanted to be a cop, and he was going through the academy, I asked a senior officer, because I didn't know if it was just my perception of police or if it was legit. And as soon as I mentioned this guy's name, they're like, nope, he was crazy.
Yeah.
He was certifiable. Like we ran him out. So I wasn't making any of this up. So this cop, I don't know, I feel like I want to give him a name. Jack, like short for jackass? No. So we're going to call him Jack. So he gets a hold of us, like he calls us and says, I have your IDs. We need to meet. I know now that that's like completely insane. He wasn't a detective. He was just a patrol officer. Under no circumstances was this okay. And so we met at the local Hardee's. We're sitting, at least it was a public space, and we're like on one side of the booth, and he's on the other side of the booth eating his little stupid biscuits or whatever the hell he's eating. And just no police business questions. And he has our IDs, and he won't give them back.
Just eating his biscuits and gravy.
It was weird.
Holding your IDs for ransom.
And then this pattern started where no matter where we were at, he would show up, just like the customer did. And so I don't know if it was both of us or he was, I don't know, but he had us in his crosshairs, and it was really, really, really terrifying. And this just went on for months. And then we finally figured out what he drove because we were frightened. But back then, again, I'm not going to the cops. He had us.
He is a cop.
He is the cop. He had us convinced we were in trouble. And so we didn't know what we could do. Finally, I figured out that screw it. Like, if we haven't had any charges filed, there's nothing. This is ridiculous. So we went to DMV. We got brand new driver's licenses. So at least we surmounted that obstacle. But months later, we see his car behind the frat house where we were hanging out a lot at. And he was, I think, dating with, or maybe he was stalking the manager of the club. She lived behind the frat house. So it was weird, like those two were in cahoots or anyway, it was just odd, but he was just always, always there. And so, like I said, many, many years later, I mentioned his name and they're like, nope, he was a complete creeper, like complete creeper. So, yeah. And then the last one was a client. So after I left engineering for many, many years, I was a life coach, a business coach. I had clients all over the world. It was really rewarding work. And when I was starting to make the move back here from the Twin Cities, it was different. This is my hometown, but people are different.
It was quite a few years later from the time you had left.
Yep.
Almost 10 years?
When I left, so it was probably 13 years or so. Yeah. So I come back and it is different. But I decided, I'm going to give it a go. This is a little bit different of a model from how I was working with clients previously. But people here really wanted to meet face to face, like be in my space. And whereas like you have a client in Scotland or Austria, like you can't.
Yeah.
You're doing it over the phone, right? And this is pre-Zoom. I mean, those things didn't exist back then, so it was wild. I'm thinking back now how hard things actually were. But then today, like things are so much harder in a lot of other ways. You know what I mean?
You think so?
Technologically, no, but
right.
Anyway,
then you have other problems.
Yeah, social media and the stuff
because
that
of
does
technology.
To our kids. Yeah, so it's like double-edged
true.
sword for sure. But anyway, so this happened with a client, and this is why ultimately I got out of the field.
Interesting.
Because, it was really terrible. And it turned out he was a registered sex offender. And that's not anything I had ever done before, was check backgrounds or registry status of clients. Why? Someone wants to better their life, and it was fine. Like whatever. Like I'm not going to judge someone who's trying to better themselves, right? And get that help and become a better version of themselves. But it got very, very creepy when he attempted to touch me.
Ew.
Yeah. And I'm like, peace out. I'm done. And so, I just had to cut ties. So it took quite a while. And still, I don't know if it's stuff I endured as a kid or it's just a combination of all this stuff. But I still, my husband will startle me multiple times a week. It's just that having someone where you can't quite see them, but they're there. Mm-hmm. And I've almost fallen off the treadmill. He's done this to me. Like, he's like, what do you want me to wear, a bell? What do you want? And I'm like, I don't know. It's a trigger. I just can't get to go away. But yeah, I'm probably not doing him justice.
Just to see if he'd do it.
So one of them was violent. I think one of them was just lonely and wanted a friend. I think one of them was freaking crazy and trying to intimidate. And then the last one, I don't know. I didn't stick around long enough to try to figure out what was motivating this person. Mm-hmm. And it's really sad, but I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe in that whole, I can't imagine now if it's like being stalked by someone who wants to harm you.
Right.
So in the boyfriend's case, he had harmed me and now wanted to make up for it. So it was that kind of guilt stalking, if you will. Like, Look at me, I'm so sweet, I'm leaving you presents and all the crap. But I just, when you look at, what did I say when we were off the air, an estimated 13.5 million people are stalked every year in the United States.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I mean, that's a lot of trauma, right? So it's 1 in 3 women, it's 1 in 6 men have experienced stalking victimization at some point in their lifetime. It's definitely more prevalent. Now, I don't know. I think social media, too, has made it easier. So that cyber stalking notion.
Absolutely.
We've had that happen here at work, even with a disgruntled client being, cruel and intimidating to my staff. And and even that's just stressful because your phone is always with you and these messages and attacks. It's just like it feels so personal and in your space, even though it's through a device. Mm-hmm. But it messes with people.
It's almost, it might almost be, I don't want to say worse because I don't know. It's not better or worse. But yeah, like you said, we're not going to give up our phones anytime soon, most of us, because so much of what you do in life is on them. So then you're just trying to go about your regular day, and it's right in your hands, essentially, that somebody knows things. And I actually told Charity before I started today, I remember working with a young woman, and she had a long-distance boyfriend who they had been together for quite a while. They were a very serious relationship. And she was working here in South Dakota. He was somewhere on the West Coast. And I don't know so you'll just know that if your phone has been hacked, it was not hacked by Julie from the Escape Pod podcast, because I don't know how to do any of those types of things. But somehow he very much had access to what was going on in her phone, and to the point that she would, take her phone, put it in a bag, put it in another room, or warn people if you were having a conversation with her about the fact, that like, FYI, like, I don't know if he can hear me. I don't know if he can see what I'm searching. And this was a few years ago. It wasn't super long ago. And, now I think we do even more on our cell phones than we did when I knew her. But it was creepy. And it even, dare I say, like, affected some of the other employees, because he got phone numbers and was sending things to people who, like, she wasn't even really friends with, but we had each other's phone numbers, and so that you could send a quick text like, hey, we have a story at such and such a place, or, there's an accident, so and so, at this location, if you're close, can you go? And so, to have like a separate cell phone just for work, I think more and more, at least in newsrooms, you will have that, so people aren't using their personal phones for everything. But at that time, it was largely your personal phone, and it wasn't even me, and I was creeped out by it. And so, yeah, it's very, very strange. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. As Charity mentioned, more than 13 million people talk about having been stalked or are being stalked in our country at any given time. And so we're going to talk about a couple other cases from other places when we come back. At One Heart, transforming lives begins with safe, stable housing and a support system that allows people to reach their true potential. It requires motivation, mentorship, and a myriad of services. It takes time and treasure, but it's worth it because it's working. One Heart provides people with a sense of security, opportunities for economic advancement, and adds dozens to the workforce each year. Learn more about why One Heart works at oneheartrc.org. And we're back on the Escape Pod. So we just heard a few stories from Charity about times in her younger days when, people seem to have that kind of obsessive like her in a little too much. We all want to be liked. We don't want to be stalked. Two totally different things. So this is not a crazy, unusual thing to happen to people. If you recall before the break, 13 million plus people in the country report having been stalked or actively being stalked. And so we have one of those stories to share with you today. And I know just like a tiny blurb about it, so I'll have some questions along the way. Go for it.
Cool. All right. So I am not in any way, this is my disclaimer, trying to disparage law enforcement. I am married to a law enforcement officer now, and I have the utmost respect for the profession and what they go through and run into and do for us. But like any profession,
correct. You have some bad apples, the bad seed.
Yeah. Or people who are attracted to the power that it gives them.
Absolutely.
And in this case, it is a police officer who was a stalker and a predator. And boy, did he have his process down. This is going to blow your mind. It is so horrific. So 2013, Ohio State Highway Patrol Agency, they were just doing a standard procedural review of dashcam, which I think even our law enforcement agencies do. They're just like, hey, we're just going to go kind of audit, take a look at what's going on. And they found something interesting, which led to an internal investigation that blew open a stalking spree by one of their own officers. So this was Officer Brian D. Lee. So what he would do is he would use social media like we were just talking about a few minutes ago, to target women. So he kind of figure out, because people are always posting, here's what I'm wearing today, here's where I'm eating, here's where I'm going, or here's where I'm at. So
People as in not you or me.
no, I never do, but like we make it easy, right? And I'm not trying to victim blame, but people who want to prey upon us, it becomes very easy.
Sure.
This electronic footprint that we leave. So he would send social media requests to women he had just pulled over.
Ooh.
Isn't that cringy? Or even had met at a gas station. Like he'd figure out who they were by their license plates, because guess what police officers can do? You know, they run plates constantly. So it's not going to draw a question if you're doing that in the course of your shift, right? So then the investigation into this dirtbag revealed that he would also seek women out on Craigslist who would be down to playing out fantasies he had, where women would engage in sexual acts to avoid being issued a ticket or whatever. Oh. So it's one thing trying to find somebody who wants to role play or whatever, and it's consensual across the board, right? But he kept stepping up his game. So this guy would pull women over, he'd chit-chat, he'd flirt with them, then he would turn off his mic. And he would force women into the back of his car. And they would go willingly because they thought they were required to. I mean, think about me with the cop with my freaking driver's license. I thought this was an okay thing. And who knows where that would have led, right? Thank God I was never alone. But it was terrifying. So in one case, he allowed a drunk driver to drive away, but he took the friend that was in the car to his car because that's the one he wanted. So long story short, if he liked what he saw or he thought he could get away with it, he would tear up the ticket or let someone else go if they would engage in some sort of sexual act with him.
Ew.
He would also feel victims up and, manhandle them when they were in handcuffs. So the first victim uncovered, the friend she was riding with had been pulled over. He let the driver go, but then offered to give the soon-to-be victim a ride home after whatever needed to happen in his mind. She said later that she thought she was safe because he was a cop and there was a camera in his car. And then he told her the camera was off. I'm already getting my stomach's going.
So can they turn them off?
You can manually turn them off. Yeah.
Okay.
She immediately, I think, if I recall from what my husband said, they're triggered to turn on, if you're running hot, like lights and sirens, they're going to automatically turn on. You can also hit it at any time when nothing's going on, and it's always recording, so it'll go back 60 seconds. I don't know if all agencies' cameras, I bet they're all pretty close to the same, though. So you can go back ooh, this wasn't happening when I saw it, but if I hit this, it'll go back 60 seconds. So It was already kind of always recording. But he told her the camera was off, and she said she immediately got nervous, and then he pulled into an alley where he made her strip down to the waist and took photos of her nude torso. And then he victimizes her. And then he starts communicating with her on social media. So insult to injury. As a quick sidebar here, I met somebody in Washington, D.C. one time. We were at a professional conference, and he became very inappropriate, wanted me to peel away from the group I was with, which oddly were some law enforcement officers, and come to his room. I've never met this guy in my life. It was very inappropriate, and just that feeling where he wouldn't stop in the morning. How'd you sleep? Very good morning. How'd you sleep? Oh my God. I mean, I was mortified. I get back to my state and he's still sending me messages and I'm not responding to anything. So I can feel it, just the adrenaline going through me right now. And that was who knows what would have happened,
Yeah.
But she's
besides the inappropriate advances and the text messages.
He kissed me. He did some other things, but still, it's just incredibly panic, unsafe, not knowing what to do. And then I think with her, she's victimized, and then he starts reaching out to her on social media. I mean, she's got to feel
Like, I'm never going to get
yeah,
away
I
from
can't.
this.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, because again, the internet's everywhere, right?
Right,
So it
right.
just, so of course she doesn't respond, but I feel for her so badly. So he stalked her. He pulled her over again. This time with another friend. And he told her he'd let the friend go if she apologized to him for ghosting him. This is how crazy this son of a bitch was. He did this repeatedly, using his position of authority to intimidate women, make them think they could escape trouble or jail fines, tickets, whatever, if they engaged in sexual acts with him, which several of them did. So I think his supervisors got more than they bargained for when they were reviewing dashcam. They found all this. Eventually, he was charged in federal court with 4 counts of violating civil rights of at least 4 women and 1 count of cyberstalking.
And again, those are the ones we know about, right?
The ones
'Cause
that
there's
were found out,
certainly,
yeah.
when you hear those stories and how he was doing what he was doing, the chances that it was only 4
yeah.
is probably pretty unlikely.
No.
Yeah.
I think people like that, they get away with things for a while, and then their confidence increases where, ooh, I can use my job. I can, where they're not going to question me.
Right.
But thank God they found him. But he did plead guilty. He was sentenced to 60 months in federal prison, and then he was scheduled to be released in September of 2019. I tried to find. I think that's a lot of times you see, like, you don't ever see the release unless, like, the victims are making a stink about it.
Right.
But I couldn't find that he did get released or he didn't. I just couldn't find anything else on him. But, it's terrifying to think about.
Yeah. Well, I suppose one silver lining we can take from this is that the agency he worked for did do that audit.
Right.
And like you said, a lot of agencies at different periods of time and likely their staff, those officers don't know when those things are going to be pulled. So the fact that there are some checks and balances, and obviously they can't do it every day, they can't do it every week, they can't do it with every single person all the time, but it doesn't mean they're not doing it at all. And so that makes me feel a little bit better in that, there are those audits being done and that there's a chance that somebody, even if they're abusing their power, like they're taking a chance too every time because they could very well be found out. And we'll just reiterate again, like Charity said, we don't. This is not widespread among law enforcement officers. This is a very specific case of somebody completely abusing his position. And it does, we know that in every profession, there are people who don't belong there. They're in those spots because they feel like they can get what they want out of it, that type of thing. Sometimes I think, the chicken or the egg argument, like, was he didn't become a predator after he was a police officer, right? He probably was a predator first.
Right.
And so he found a job, essentially he got into a job where he thought maybe he could get away with it. And even then he didn't get away with it. So that's the upside of that part of the story.
So though for women out there that,
please.
Like, if you're alone and you're getting pulled over and you are fully within your rights to call dispatch and make sure that that is an actual police officer behind you.
Right.
Like, keep driving until you get confirmation if you feel afraid. There are so many, like, true crime stories of people impersonating police officers, pulling, unsuspecting victims over just to prey upon them. This is a little bit different and more intentional. I'm talking more like on the serial killer side of things. It's happened. There's so many cases, like too many. It's absolutely wild, but you can't.
So I remember reading or hearing once that you could also arguably go to should probably get on with dispatch and check. And if you, while they're figuring out, like, is this person really there, really an officer, whatever, continuing on to a place that is a more public place. Is that true?
I guess I can't really speak to that. But if you're on with dispatch, just saying, hey, I am not trying to evade law enforcement.
Right.
I just am
Make
feeling
clear,
very unsafe right now.
I think I'm being pulled over, but I'm by myself. But don't quote me on that because I don't want to get anybody in trouble because you heard it on the
we are not
escape pod.
experts in law enforcement.
No.
We are not
What else,
experts
though, can people do?
Well, there is the National Stalking Helpline. If you think you're a victim of stalking and you need safety planning help, They have advocates 24/7. They can talk, chat, text with you. The 1-800-799-SAFE, which is 1-800-799-7233, or you can chat at thehotline.org. And this was really cool when I was looking through so many of these victims assistance websites now have a security alert. And I haven't had a need to look at those websites until I was doing this research. But it gives you that warning. It says internet usage can be monitored. It's impossible to erase completely. If you're concerned your internet usage might be monitored, call us or learn more about digital security and how to clear your browser history. But then they have this cool red X on these websites where you can click that and it just gets you out of there immediately, or hit the escape button twice at any time. So if someone's walking in and they, oh my gosh, they're, trying to come up with a safety plan, or they're going to leave me, or, because a lot of times the person that's terrorizing terrorizing victims, they live with you. They have easy access to you, and it just becomes kind of like your friend we were talking about.
And she wasn't even, they weren't even in the same state, and he still had a lot of control. For sure.
Well, those, I don't know what year did you say that was?
Probably 2013-ish.
Okay. So I remember when, my youngest is a boy and he was going through, hormones. We had to have the, hey, we're not going to do the porn thing talk. You know what I mean? And so, of course, teenage boys, hormones, they're curious. And so we had I can't remember what it was called now, but it was a slick device app that we planted on all his devices. So if I wanted to, I could see everything he searched, every text message, every call he made, everything. And he just knew it was there. And I trusted that him knowing I could look at any time was enough. And once in a while I would look and, but, and then when he turned 18 and went away to college, I'm just like, okay, you're on your own
an adult now.
Hopefully I've taught you good lessons. And, I know people, a lot of times, there's a lot of opinions about porn, right? That it's consensual, and it isn't always. And,
Right.
you look at people who, this is the explanation I gave to my kid was a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, the people who are involved in this are victims themselves.
Right.
And, how would you feel if like your sister or your mom or somebody were forced into this type of industry? Would you want people having enjoyment or making money off of the pain of somebody? And he's like, well, no, I wouldn't. And I'm like, so, I just want you to be aware that this is not all, this is what I want to do for a living. And some people do,
Right.
I just watched a YouTube thing yesterday on somebody, and that's her jam. But then the more the interviewer started talking to her, she went into like that childhood trauma and all of this stuff. I'm not saying it's connected, but it very well could be.
Right.
Like, I'm not here to judge. It's just,
Well, and that can be a coping mechanism too, right? Where you're telling yourself, no, I'm okay with this. When if you took a hard look at it, it's your way of getting through it. And we've had conversations before about, people who do drugs sometimes, and the drug is allowing them to do the thing that they really don't want to do. And in a lot of cases, it might be sexual in nature. So it's the coping mechanism, to let yourself kind of off the hook, if you will. So it's, might be consensual, but in a whole lot of cases it's not.
Yeah. Well, like always, though, we'll have some resources and sources in the show notes. So if you wanted to dig more into any of this or, wondered, I didn't catch that phone number or whatever, we'll make sure that it's in there for you.
All right. We're going to take one more break. And when we come back, we'll end on a little happier note. Stay with us. Need an early morning boost or midday pick-me-up? Check out the Homebrew Coffee Shop, a coffee shop with a cause in the heart of the One Heart campus. Homebrew is home to delicious coffee, sweet treats, breakfast, and lunch items, a great place to meet friends or host small group meetings. Homebrew, located at 201 Kansas City Street in Rapid City. Open Monday through Friday from 6:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. Homebrew, where you'll find hope for a home in every cup. All right, we are back on the escape pod just for a couple of minutes to wrap things up here. So, I don't think Charity likes this as much, but I'm going to make her do it anyway. I like to find out what, if anything, you want to escape to in the near future. It doesn't actually have to be a place. It can be a state of mind. But is there some place, instead of always escaping from the negative, something happy, positive, cheerful? I have to end on a happy note, or I'm just gonna I'm gonna quit the podcast altogether if I don't get to end on a cheerful note.
I think it's good. It's just, yeah, when things are not going well for me, they're like really not going well. And it's just like so hard to see through that. So I guess some of the things I'm grateful for right now is we are finally at full staff.
Yay!
For at least a minute.
Yeah.
At least a minute.
I think it'll last longer than a minute.
I know.
I'm making a bold prediction here.
Amazing people helping us do this amazing work, and just it's incredible. Yeah. So I'm just really proud of the team for sticking through all of that, and being short staffed while doing very hard work.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
good. Thank you for sharing that. If I get to escape to a place, oh my gosh, please don't tell my children
the coffee
I
shop
said this. The coffee. Can I escape into the cold foam?
Yeah. Yeah.
What if you could do that?
Cold foam therapy. Ooh, TM.
So I did ask after I had this
what is that?
time.
Is it pink?
It's yours. What's the thing you get? I said, give me the thing Charity gets, and she did it.
Chocolate cold brew lavender cold foam.
Yes.
It is amazing.
So I'm curious. I thought to myself, I wonder if I can just ask for the cold foam with the lavender and just have a cup of that. And then I realized that's like a pup cup. Like that's really what I want is like a pup cup. But so yeah, if I could escape into that bad boy.
Drinking a lavender cloud. Hey, that sounds like a drug. So I mean,
I think that's what the Beatles took before, like Yellow Submarine.
Lavender foam. They might have.
There were some interesting things.
They might have. Ooh, we need to write a song now. What are we calling this episode? By the way?
Oh, what are we calling it? Stalking. Oh, we'll have to continue to work on that. Sometimes those titles come to me so quickly, and then other times I have to ruminate on it.
All right.
We'll try again next time.
All right.
We'll have a better title next time.
Well, everybody, thank you for listening, and make sure that if you wanna reach out, you wanna tell us how we're doing. Please be kind. Please be kind. Please be kind. I don't want Julie to cry. No, actually, we both would. We both would. But you can reach us at justbecause@escapepod.live. Or if you have a story about escaping, and it can be trauma, domestic violence, systems, situations,
crazy
people.
families.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, good Lord. If you have former parents like I do, feel free to send us those stories because, again, we really want to help build up a community where we can maybe, I don't mean normalize in an it's okay type of a way,
right? But
normalize in the there's not anything wrong with you sort of way for these things, these situations you've been maybe born into or raised in, or that. We can all be better by doing better and supporting one another. And I just think there's so many stories of so much perseverance and resilience out there. I see it every day in the people that we serve on this campus that overcome things that would just blow your minds. And we want that for you. If you think you're not worth it or you think it's not possible, I'm here to tell you that it absolutely is. So send us those stories at escapepod.live. And let us know if you're comfortable with us sharing that on the air, because we would love to do some episodes honoring and celebrating the hard work you've done to change a situation in your life.
Yeah,
And
you're definitely not alone. And
No,
that's
you're
it
not
all
alone.
kind of is summed up in, unfortunately, some of these things are happening often and happen to a lot of people. But as Charity said, we do have opportunities to escape. And if you have taken one of those opportunities, we absolutely want to hear it. So that's Escape Artist at escapepod.live to share those stories with us. And our website, escapepod.live as well. So
and then please
check us
consider
out.
rate, reviewing, and subscribing. You can find us on through
All
the
the
website,
places.
Spotify, all those different things, and do let us know. We want to make sure this is something that you want to listen to. And it's something that it's a little bit of a twist on things that have been done before, but it really, really, really will revolve around you. I mean, I only have so many stories, so.
I don't know. She does have a lot, though, and some of them are pretty funny. We'll share some of those in our bonus content as well, so keep an eye out for that. That's going to do it for us this time. Please escape with us again next time.